We know that in all things, not just the good things in life, but even in the bad things, the ugly things, the terrible, the tragic things of life, in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him.
In 1980, one man led a church of 200 people. By 2020, that same church had grown to 30,000 members across multiple campuses. Rick Warren built an empire. Then he handed it off. Within 3 years, the church lost its denomination. Its reputation crumbled, and a new senior pastor resigned after just 2 years. One succession destroyed what took 4 decades to build. This is the story of what happens when legacy becomes a trap and leadership becomes a crisis nobody saw coming. Rick Warren didn't just build a church. He built a personality-driven empire. From day one, Saddleback reflected Warren's vision, his communication style, his priorities, his approach to everything, the casual dress code, the contemporary music, the practical sermons, all Warren, and it worked brilliantly. By the 1990s, churches worldwide were copying his methods. The purpose-driven model became the blueprint for modern ministry. Warren's books sold millions. His influence stretched from small-town pastors to global leaders. But underneath that success was a hidden problem. Saddleback wasn't built on a system. It was built on a person. Warren made every major decision. He set the tone for every message. Staff looked to him for direction. Members came to hear him speak. The brand and the man were inseparable. Nobody questioned it. Why would they? The results spoke for themselves. But this created a dangerous dependence. When Warren spoke, thousands listened. When he wrote, millions bought. When he led, people followed. The church grew because of him. And that became the trap. Because what happens when that person leaves? Warren knew this was coming. He talked about succession for years. He wanted a smooth transition, a plan that would preserve everything he'd built. But planning for succession and preparing for it are two different things. Because the truth is, you can't replace a founder. You can only try to fill the space they leave behind. And at Saddleback, that space was massive. Warren was ready to step down. He'd led for over 40 years. The church was strong. The campuses were full. The influence was global. Everything looked perfect for a handoff. But nobody realized the foundation was already cracking. In 2020, Warren announced his successor, Andy Wood, a pastor from Echo Church in California. On paper, it made sense. Wood was young, energetic, a proven leader who'd grown his own church. He had the skills to manage a megachurch operation, but he wasn't Rick Warren. And that was the problem nobody wanted to say out loud. Warren had spent decades building personal relationships with Saddleback's members. They trusted him. They knew his voice. They'd grown up listening to his sermons. Wood was a stranger. The transition plan looked organized. Warren would stay involved, mentor from the sidelines, help Wood settle in. They called it a partnership, but in reality, it was impossible. Because how do you mentor someone to replace you when you are the brand? Wood stepped into the role in September 2021. The church threw a celebration. Messages of support flooded in. Everything seemed positive, but behind the scenes, tensions were already building. Wood had his own leadership style, his own vision, his own approach to ministry, and it didn't always match Warren's. Staff felt the shift. Some embraced it, others resisted. The church began splitting into camps, those loyal to Warren's way, and those open to Wood's direction. Then came the decision that changed everything. In May 2021, just months before Wood officially started, Saddleback ordained 3 women as pastors. Warren supported it. Wood supported it. They presented it as a unified decision. But the Southern Baptist Convention saw it differently. This wasn't just a leadership transition anymore. It was a theological crisis. and Wood was walking into a firestorm. The SBC launched an investigation. Meetings happened. Statements were released. Pressure mounted. Wood had been senior pastor for less than a year, and the church was already facing expulsion from its denomination. The succession plan was falling apart, and nobody knew how to stop it. Because the real problem wasn't the decision itself. It was what the decision revealed about Saddleback's leadership culture. February 2023. The Southern Baptist Convention voted. Saddleback was out. For Wood, this was devastating. He'd been senior pastor for barely 18 months, and the church had just lost its denominational home. Warren appealed the decision. He flew to the annual meeting that summer. He spoke passionately, defended the choice, asked for reconsideration. The SBC voted again. The expulsion stood, and suddenly, Wood was leading a church in crisis. Attendance started dropping. Some members left over the women pastor issue. Others left because they felt the church had compromised. Donors pulled back. Staff morale tanked. Wood tried to hold things together. He preached unity. He emphasized mission. He worked to reassure members that Saddleback's best days were ahead. But the damage was done, because the expulsion exposed a deeper problem. Saddleback's leadership had made a major theological decision without considering the cost. And now Wood was paying the price. Internal tensions escalated. Staff who disagreed with the decision felt silenced. Staff who supported it felt attacked. Leadership meetings became battlegrounds. Wood found himself caught in the middle. He hadn't created this mess, but he inherited it. And the pressure kept building. By late 2023, rumors started circulating. Staff resignations, budget cuts, campuses struggling. The church that once seemed unstoppable was hemorrhaging. Wood tried to navigate it. He made changes, restructured teams, launched new initiatives, but he was fighting a losing battle. Because the real issue wasn't strategy, it was trust. Members didn't trust the leadership that made the decision. They didn't trust the process that led to expulsion. And many didn't trust Wood to fix it. He was a new leader trying to repair a legacy he didn't build. And every attempt to move forward felt like another step back. Then, in early 2024, the breaking point came. Wood made an announcement that shocked everyone. After just 2.5 years as senior pastor, he was stepping down. The succession plan had completely collapsed. Andy Wood's resignation sent shockwaves through Saddleback. The official statement was carefully worded. Wood said he felt called to return to his previous ministry. He expressed gratitude for his time at Saddleback. He wished the church well, but everyone knew what it really meant. The transition had failed. Warren had spent 42 years building Saddleback. Wood lasted less than 3. And now the church faced a leadership vacuum. Staff were stunned. Some saw it coming. Others were blindsided. But everyone felt the weight of what it meant. Saddleback didn't just lose a pastor. It lost credibility. Churches don't recover easily from failed successions. Donors lose confidence. Members lose stability. The outside world starts asking questions. And the questions were brutal. How does a church this size lose a senior pastor this quickly? What really happened behind closed doors? Who's actually in charge now? The answers weren't encouraging, because Wood's resignation revealed what many had suspected all along. Saddleback's leadership structure was broken. Warren had controlled everything for decades. He was the vision, the voice, the decision-maker, and when he stepped back, there was no system strong enough to replace him. The elders tried to stabilize things. They appointed interim leaders. They promised a search for the next senior pastor. They urged members to stay committed. But trust was gone. Multiple staff members resigned in the months following Wood's departure. Some cited burnout. Others mentioned theological disagreements. A few just quietly disappeared. Attendance continued dropping. Campuses that once overflowed now had empty seats. Giving declined. Programs shut down. The church that once trained thousands of pastors worldwide was now struggling to find its own leader. And the irony was impossible to miss. Warren had built a global movement teaching churches how to grow. But he never taught them how to survive without him. The empire he created couldn't outlast him, because it was never designed to. It was designed to need him. And when he left, the whole thing started crumbling. So what actually went wrong? The easy answer is the women pastor's decision. But that's not the whole story. The real problem was deeper, structural, years in the making. Warren built Saddleback around his personality, his gifts, his vision. And personality-driven churches face a predictable problem. They can't be transferred, because people don't follow systems. They follow people. And when that person leaves, loyalty leaves with them. Warren knew this. He talked about it. He tried to plan for it. But knowing the problem and solving it are different things. The succession plan assumed Wood could step into Warren's role. But there was no role. There was only Warren. And replacing a founder is impossible. You can only try to build something new. But Saddleback didn't want something new. It wanted Warren's legacy to continue. So Wood was set up to fail from the start. He was expected to lead like Warren, preach like Warren, connect like Warren, but also bring fresh vision, new energy, different ideas. It was an impossible standard. And when the women pastor controversy hit, it exposed how fragile everything was. Because the decision wasn't the problem. The problem was that leadership made a massive choice without building consensus first. They prioritized conviction over unity, vision over stability, progress over process. And in a church already struggling with transition, that was fatal. Wood inherited a crisis he didn't create. And when he couldn't fix it, the system collapsed. The tragedy is that all of this was predictable. Personality-driven churches always face succession crises. History proves it over and over. When a founder stays too long, the church becomes dependent. Members expect that voice, that style, that presence, and when it's gone, nothing feels right anymore. Saddleback isn't unique. It's just the latest example. The warning signs were everywhere. Staff turnover, decision-making concentrated at the top, a culture that valued growth over depth, a brand built on one man's platform. But nobody wanted to see it, because addressing it would mean admitting the foundation was weak. So they kept building higher, faster, wider. And when the weight finally came down, the whole thing buckled. Now, Saddleback sits in limbo. No senior pastor, declining attendance, a reputation in tatters. The church that once defined success is now a cautionary tale. And the lesson is brutal but clear. Legacy can't be transferred. It can only be honored or abandoned. Saddleback tried to do both, and lost everything in the process. The empire Warren built is crumbling. And the leadership crisis isn't over. It's just beginning. The question now isn't whether Saddleback can recover. It's whether any personality-driven church can survive its founder. How many megachurches are facing this same crisis right now? How many leaders are building empires that can't outlast them? And when their moment comes, will anyone learn from Saddleback's collapse? Or will they repeat it?